All right, welcome back to Fantasy Sports today here on SportsGrid. Thanks again to Matt Stryker for joining us for the first couple of hours of the show. It is our supersized edition of the program, and it's gone from 4 to 3. So if you bet the under on amount of hosts for the 3 hours of the show, congrats, you win. You can cash in over on your friendly sports betting website. But welcome back to the show. 11 o'clock, we're out of here, and Pro Football Today, and again, all of the great programming coming your way. We just keep it going here on Super Bowl Sunday, all the way up until kickoff at 6:30, 6:40 Eastern. So, gentlemen, let's start off here and take a look at some pass or smash possibilities. Anytime props for the Kansas City Chiefs. And, Joe, we'll start off with you, and then I'll go to George. Let's start off with Travis Kelce of the Kansas City Chiefs. Boy, what a tough player he is to call. Used to not be the case, but, coming, toward the end of his career for sure. I know there's been some discussion. Maybe he retires at the end of the year. I don't know that I really see it that way, but I think we've probably seen Kelce's best football, but he definitely can turn it on in a Super Bowl, Joe. So plus 125, Are you passing on this, or are you smashing that button to hit on him hitting this touchdown prop?
I think you nailed it. That's the temptation of it, right? Because it's plus 125. It seems like a lock. It gets a lot of attention. There's probably, 3 to 4 Chiefs touchdowns in this game. I know I have one earmarked for a running back. We'll talk about that in a second. I have one earmarked, too, that's a pretty big number. And what we know about the other ones is Patrick Mahomes is going to find the open guy. He is going to look around, and sometimes it's Noah Gray or it's Justin Watson. There's all these things where it makes us go, ugh, why? Why did that happen to us? So I think you have to understand this feels very trappy to me. And the narrative of, when maybe he does retire. Maybe this is it. This is the off into the sunset moment for Travis Kelce. I'm going to stay away from this one. I think it's a trap. I think it's incredibly tempting, but instead I'm going to look for some other ones that have some bigger payouts that I think are possibly more of a lock than Travis Kelce when we get down to it.
George?
Agreed. I agree with Joe. I'll throw a couple other things. Eagles are generally very good against tight ends. All right. It's more of a fantasy nerd thing, but they don't let up a lot of points with tight ends, and touchdowns are certainly a no-no as well here. I do feel like that, though, when Kansas City gets close, they're going to look to him. So I don't mind people who go for it. I did not. I don't think there's going to be as many touchdowns for Kansas City. I think Joe said he has 3 to 4. I have 2 to 3. That being said, I'll be honest. If they get 2 to 3, I don't know who's scoring them. All right, I don't feel great about anybody that Craig's going to bring up here. All right, so it's going to be hard to figure out who the touchdowns are for Kansas City. I feel better about the Philadelphia side than I do about the Kansas City side. But no, plus 125 is not quite enough for me to go for it.
Yeah, a little jaded on George here, who's on the Eagles. Now, Joe, this is the interesting one for me because, I sort of wonder why Isaiah Pacheco doesn't get mentioned more. It feels like all of the rushing discussion on the props and the yards and everything else is on Kareem Hunt, who's been much more of the game plan since Pacheco has been out. But Pacheco is back, and he is playing. Hunt's number is plus 145, and he has been the better running back to bet on of the two. But, Pacheco has now, at least in my opinion, been fully healthy for a while and even has had a couple of weeks to get ready for this one. If you want to dial it back to week 1, the Chiefs running back was Pacheco. Like, he was the guy until he got hurt. So, I get it. And if the ball is near the goal line, they do seem to give it to Hunt to more than Pacheco. But I feel like Pacheco's props, to me, are the ones that are a little bit more undervalued.
They might be. You're certainly getting some better numbers, but I think Kareem Hunt has the security of the ball that I think Andy Reid is looking for when he gets to the goal line. And that is why he has a touchdown in 4 straight games, because I think he feels comfortable with Kareem Hunt in these short yardages, in these spots here at the goal line, where he's going to hold on to the football and pound that rock in. So I think this one is far better than the Travis Kelce one. You're getting a better number, plus 145. And the trend line is very clear. Week 16, touchdown. Week 17, touchdown. Divisional round, touchdown. The championship game, touchdown. Kareem Hunt. What more do we have to get beat over the head with it? So whether Pacheco is involved or not heavily, it doesn't matter to me. We're looking for one of these 3 to 4 Chiefs touchdowns. I'm looking at Kareem Hunt for one of them.
George?
Sooner or later I'll find something to disagree with Joe about, but this ain't one. This ain't it. All right. Once again, I think he's right. I don't love it, mind you. Once again, I don't have many touchdowns coming from the Chiefs. I'm on the Eagles, as Craig brought up, so I think it's going to be an Eagles day for me. You don't run against the Eagles. All right, so for him to get it, I don't think as much rushing yards coming at all from Hunt. I think the only way Kansas City wins this game, by the way, is Mahomes goes bananas. He has to have a really good game for them to win that. So I like this much better than Travis Kelce, which is what Joe said, and I agree. But I don't love it. I just don't see many touchdowns coming from Kansas City. But as I keep saying, I don't know where they're coming from. They are going to score 1 or 2, maybe 3. I don't know where they're coming from.
Well, I mean, it could be Mahomes. We'll get to his number in a minute. It's actually, a pretty good number for an anytime touchdown for Mahomes at 4-1. But Xavier Worthy is plus 150. Marquise Brown is plus 260. And as I said, Patrick Mahomes is plus 4-1. So the opportunity is there to cash in on any of these 3 players, Joe. Is Mahomes the best number, though? Of all of these 3, we saw him rush another touchdown. It feels like in the big games, they sort of unleash him as they get into the red zone.
Almost 180 rushing yards in the 4 Super Bowls for Mahomes. He takes the ball into his own hands and makes things happen. And I love this for a couple reasons. And I know we talked about this a little bit on Friday. Not only are you getting a great number on Mahomes, but you're also getting a situation where you have Jalen Carter coming up the middle, right? Flushing him out of the pocket. You have some really good quality cornerback play and a bunch of mid-level wide receivers who don't create separation. So what does that mean? You don't have a lot of time to throw the football, and a lot of people aren't open right away. That means Mahomes might have to take off and run a lot. And if you get down to those goal line scenarios or those red zone scenarios, I can see Mahomes doing a lot of what he did last week against the Buffalo Bills, which is saying, screw it, I'm taking this ball myself, and we're going to get that touchdown. And he's not afraid of contact. He showed you that. He's going to go in there. He's going to mix it up at the goal line if he has to. So plus 400, I love this number. I think Mahomes scores a touchdown in this game. I think it's Mahomes. I think it's Hunt. And I think it's one of those 2 other wide receivers. My money would be on Worthy. It would not shock me if it's Hollywood Brown. It wouldn't shock me if it's Hopkins either. It wouldn't shock me if it's anybody, because Mahomes is just going to find some rando who's open in the end zone, because that's what Patrick Mahomes does. He doesn't care about your stats. He cares about touchdowns. And I think he's going to rush one in today. I really do. I like this plus 400. I don't know if George likes it as much as I do, but maybe this is where we finally disagree.
No, it is not. Once again, I agree with everything you said here. The rando might be Juju Smith-Schuster, by the way. I wouldn't forget about Smith-Schuster.
Right, another rando, right?
Right. Hopkins actually might surprise me if he ends up being the big guy. I am on a host of Mahomes props. All right. I keep saying this. I don't think they can run the ball. I think Mahomes is going to crush his attempts, which is 35.5 now, or maybe 36.5. I got it at 35.5. I think he's going to crush his completions. I think he's going to crush his rushing yards. I think he's going to get the end zone as well here. He has to. He has to be this team today. They're not going to be able to run the ball consistently. They're not going to get in 2nd and 4. So if they keep running the ball, it's going to be 2nd and 8, 2nd and 9. I think, Joe, you said something that was perfect. He's going to feel the need. I'm scrambling. There's nobody open. I got to get the first down. And maybe one of those first downs will be a touchdown. People forget that a touchdown is a first down there. Hey, look for that. I just think he has to be that guy today, or else the Chiefs have no chance here. So, yes, there's not a Mahomes prop I don't like. I think he's going to get sacked more than 3.5 times. I think he's going to throw an interception. He's going to drop back 40 times. Sooner or later, he's going to get picked. So it won't be his fault here, but he has to have a great game. This game's all on Mahomes for the Chiefs.
Do either of you think that a non-quarterback throws a pass in this game? That prop has seemed to hit pretty frequently in recent Super Bowls. Joe, do you think that happened?
That would be my guy. It would be Barkley or Kelce, because we've seen it happen a little bit before, and Kelce played a little quarterback too, and they've done that. They've done that Kelce pass before. Yeah, I mean, that could also be one of those spots too. But I don't think that's impossible in this game. Somebody's going to pull something out of the bag, and both these coaches like to have gimmick plays from time to time.
Worthy on the end around. They love running that end around. How about Worthy? I don't know if he can throw a football, but what about Worthy there? But yes, I'm on this prop, Greg. More than 2.
Yeah, no, it seems to have hit in recent history quite a bit. We'll take a quick timeout. We'll talk more about some of the player props on the Chiefs next.
Let's talk about Philly and Kansas City. They're here again 2 out of the last 3 years. What are your thoughts on this matchup?
I'm a big Andy Reid fan, and it's hard to go against what he's been able to accomplish. That being said, there's a lot of storylines in this game. You know, you look at Saquon and what he's been able to do this year.
Crazy.
It's wild. But if he's able to do what he's done throughout the playoffs, they'll be hard to beat.
Only on SportsGrid.
You want me to solve all this tush-push and fourth down malarkey that goes on with the officials? Here's a crazy idea. Get rid of the worst rule in the NFL, and that is forward progress. How about this? Where I knock your ass in the ground is where the ball goes, period. Let's end this whole conversation. Like, if I drop you back 4 yards, then you lost 4 yards. If we get rid of forward progress, this tush-push and everything else is taken care of. Where I put your tail on the ground is where the ball goes, end of conversation. It's the dumbest rule and the most arbitrary rule. The only thing that is a worse call in the NFL than forward progress is the punt that goes out of bounds when you watch the official walk down the sideline having absolutely no clue where that ball crossed over. All I can think of is that Price is Right game go do-de-do-de-do, do-de-do-de-do, as he's walking down the sideline, arbitrarily trying to figure out where the ball crossed over because he's got no clue.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Can't get enough Super Bowl talk on Super Bowl Sunday, that's for sure, if you've been catching our programming here at SportsGrid. But, folks, football definitely drives the bus here. I mean, I think what's really funny about this, before we get back into some player props, is that you're actually looking at three hosts here at SportsGrid. I wouldn't say that we're baseball-first people. Maybe I am. I mean, people know me more from baseball than anything else. But we definitely enjoy baseball, maybe more than some others. But yet, Joe, there's this bittersweet feeling that we know baseball's back, and it's exciting for us starting next week. But not having any football to talk about, I guess, look, the draft comes up in April, and there's always something. But there's always, for me, that bittersweet feeling when I know this is the very last game of the season.
Yeah, but we have free agency. That's around the corner. That's been entertaining the last couple of years. We do have NFL draft coverage. That's going to be fun to wager on too. But yeah, I'm with you. There is a little bittersweetness here. And I think a lot of people are a little bittersweet about this matchup too, because they've seen it before. And I think they like just new stuff. Like, oh, let me see the Buffalo Bills this time. Or, oh, let's see the Detroit Lions. You didn't get any of that. You got some usual suspects in there. And you see like some of these tickets were still available. And I don't know if it's because maybe the Chiefs fans don't have enough money to keep going to Super Bowls every year. Maybe they're just tapped out. You know, it's expensive to do. Or maybe people are just saying, I've kind of seen this one before. I don't know if I want to make that trip. So that's like kind of interesting too, how tickets didn't really move. Also a bigger building too. Maybe that's part of it. But some interesting things. Maybe there's a little fatigue with this Super Bowl that's a little different than maybe some years past.
George?
I think that's fair. I think Joe put it perfectly. We would have rather seen Buffalo and Detroit, maybe a more fun Super Bowl. You know, something like Ben Johnson throwing out all these gimmicks that he was doing. I mean, we might have had a 41-38 game, something like that. So I do think that's fair here, that we're getting a little fatigued. Personally, I don't mind. I kind of like the idea. I may be on Philadelphia, but I want Kansas City to win. Mainly because I'm a Cowboys fan and I can't stand the Eagles, but also because I kind of like chasing history and watching it to see if Mahomes could catch Brady one day. You know, I never would have thought that Tom Brady would retire and then right away we'd find the next GOAT. You know, so I think it's always a good thing. I like chasing history. You know, when the Patriots were going for the undefeated season, I want them to beat the Giants. Once again, Cowboy fan, hate the Giants, but I also want to see history and see an undefeated season there. So that's just the way I look at it. So I want a good game tonight. I want to be entertained. You know, I don't want it to be a blowout. Even if I guess if it's in my favor, yeah, I'll take the blowout. I'll take the money. But I'd like to be entertained for a couple of hours to watch the game. We don't have another game for 7 months. I know free agency's in a
That's
couple of
true.
weeks. Yay. And the draft, great. And we are baseball guys, which I think the start of baseball season, I assume with Joe and I might be a little different than you, Craig, because it means nicer, warmer weather is coming here. As I keep complaining about all show, I got to go out and shovel snow after this. So that's why I like baseball so much. One of the reasons I like baseball so much, because the warmer weather is coming.
Yeah, no, I definitely understand that, and look, I think in the end, football is the most talked about sport in the country. It's the most bet sport in the country, but we still do have a lot to go, especially here at SportsGrid, where if you consider that this is the Super Bowl, if there's a second Super Bowl here for us at SportsGrid, it's coming up in 2 months in the NCAA tournament, so that's around the corner as well. Okay, back to the Kansas City Chiefs props we go. Let's take a look at the emerging Xavier Worthy, who seems to be flying over a lot of his props on a weekly basis. 5.5 now is his receiving prop in terms of his receptions, and the total amount of yards, 54.5. Joe, I will start with you. And by the way, George, Matt Stryker is gone, so you understand that when Joe is done, it's your time to talk. Go ahead, Joe.
Well, of course,
for me,
before he was throwing my name, he was saying George, and now he didn't say George.
Well, now there's only 3 of us now. It's much easier.
Starts,
Unless
George
Luke's
Kurtz.
going to join in at some point. It's basically
15 yards.
1, 2, 3.
All right, let's get after Worthy, shall we? And Worthy, to me, I'm looking at the yardage, and I'm looking at the over because of his explosiveness. In fact, if you want to bet the longest reception for him, that's typically a good way to approach him. I would fade away from the actual receptions prop on him, though, because it is going to be varying. And you do have those really good secondary players now for the Eagles. So for me, I'm going to look just to the yardage for him, look for the biggest potential play of the game for him too, because that explosiveness is what you're looking for when it comes to Worthy, and he has been that guy. And it seems like these last 6 weeks or so, things have really developed in a positive way for him, just like we saw with last year with Rashee Rice in this offense. So it takes rookies some time to get acclimated. It looks like Worthy feels good. George, where are you at with Worthy's props? Are you looking at them or away from them?
Once again, this won't be the guy we disagree on either. I'm with you here. I'll add, I think we saw during a championship game where he's not just a deep threat. We're seeing his development over the season where he's becoming that number one wide receiver. I am not saying he's Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase of that ilk here, but I like what I've seen from him. He is getting those slants over the middle. They use him in every which way possible. I love what Andy Reid does, by the way. Put his guys in the best chances to succeed here. We know we're going to get the end around. If you can find that bet for over a half rushes for Xavier Worthy, you take it. And as you said, I am much bigger on his receiving prop than I am his receptions. I played an anytime touchdown as well. Someone has to score on Kansas City. I may not know who it is, but someone's got to score on Kansas City. So I'll take the plus 150 with Worthy as well. And they will take some deep shots with him. They're going to want to make that Eagles defense play it fair. So they'll take some deep shots to back those safeties off.
All right, George, I'm going to go back to you here for this. Why is Isaiah Pacheco's rushing yards so low here? 22.5. What am I missing here? I mean, can this guy not get 4 carries for 30 yards or something like that here? This seems so low.
No, I don't think. I think they're right for 2 reasons. One, I don't think they can run against the Eagles' front. I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball at all. I think they're going to give up on it pretty quickly. We're just not going to work here. Also, Hunt's the starter. It may be 60-40, 65-35, but Hunt's the starter here. It's not Pacheco.
Right.
Now, maybe the 2 weeks that they've had off here, maybe he's had more time to heal that leg and get in his rehab and feels better. Anything's possible. I think overall he's the better back, just maybe not this year. I don't think that leg's completely healthy here. So no, I don't think he's going to get this. I think the game script says no. I just don't like it either back. I don't like their over rushing prop.
Yeah, I don't love either, Craig, but if I did look to one spot, it would be the under for the attempts on Hunt, but the over on his yards, which I know makes no sense, but that is where the trend line is. So it's odd, it's contrarian, but to me, that's where it lives.
All right, fair enough. Coming up next, it is Travis Kelce, who's made news the last 24 hours, some potential for a retirement. Talk about his props next.
Let's talk about Philly and Kansas City. They're here again 2 out of the last 3 years. What are your thoughts on this matchup?
I'm a big Andy Reid fan, and it's hard to go against what he's been able to accomplish. That being said, there's a lot of storylines in this game. You know, you look at Saquon and what he's been able to do this year.
Crazy.
It's wild. But if he's able to do what he's done throughout the playoffs, they'll be hard to beat.
Only on SportsGrid.
You want me to solve all this tush-push and fourth down malarkey that goes on with the officials? Here's a crazy idea. Get rid of the worst rule in the NFL, and that is forward progress. How about this? Where I knock your ass in the ground is where the ball goes, period. Let's end this whole conversation. Like, if I drop you back 4 yards, then you lost 4 yards. If we get rid of forward progress, this tush-push and everything else is taken care of. Where I put your tail on the ground is where the ball goes, end of conversation. It's the dumbest rule and the most arbitrary rule. The only thing that is a worse call in the NFL than forward progress is the punt that goes out of bounds when you watch the official walk down the sideline having absolutely no clue where that ball crossed over. All I can think of is that Price is Right game go do-de-do-de-do, do-de-do-de-do, as he's walking down the sideline, arbitrarily trying to figure out where the ball crossed over because he's got no clue.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Pro Football Today coming your way 11 a.m. Eastern. This is Fantasy Sports Today. Craig Mish, George Kurtz, Joe Pisapia. It's our final Fantasy Sports Today football shows of the season. We pivot over to baseball next week. Now, before we get to Travis Kelce's props, I do want to mention one quick thing about the whole, Taylor Swift extravaganza that has now been going on for a couple of years. I'm like sort of indifferent to Taylor Swift. I would say that my daughter and my wife, they go to the concerts. They've been to, a lot of the big ones. They went to Tampa, I think, traveled to that. Joe, the one thing that I would say about this whole thing with them, showing her, there at the game, stuff like, I don't understand what gets people upset about that. I have never understood when people say it's annoying and they don't like this phenomenon. Like, how does this affect anybody's life whatsoever that a 3-second cutaway or a 15-second discussion on sports shows really affects their lives? I mean, I think there are things to argue about and to debate about. For me, this has never been one of them. And I'm not saying that I even like Taylor Swift. I just don't understand how people are like upset about that. Like, it takes away from their football in some way. What it tells me is that there are just angry people out there in the world and on social media that are trying to find something to argue about, because this to me is not one of them. I don't get it at all.
Well, as a dad who's been to the Eras Tour, I can tell you, not only was it an impressive 3+ hours, and I've been to Springsteen shows that were almost 4. She's right up there in terms of we're talking about just kicking ass and taking names out there. And I think it's just jealousy of somebody actually supporting their significant other. I mean, honestly, a lot of people don't get that support from their significant others and what they do or what their passions are. And it's nice to see both of them doing. What's weird to me, Craig, is that when Travis Kelce shows up there at the Eras Tour, he's on stage, he's in the crowd, everybody loves it. They're so excited to see him. But it's the inverse when she shows up there. So what does that tell you? I think that's the weirder part, is why is one group embracing that and the other group not? It doesn't make any sense to me. I think you're right. People are just unhappy. They want to rage against something stupid. Did anybody care when Jack Nicholson was courtside at all the Lakers games and they were cutting him every 2 seconds, or Spike Lee at the next game? Nobody cares. They've been doing this forever. Celebrities always get cut to for their reactions, and she's a fun reaction. And guess what? It's good for the product. And if it's good for the product, the NFL is going to keep doing it. So it's not even her fault. It's not like she's asking for it. She's sitting in the box, for God's sakes, just having fun, watching the game. Good for her. Good for him. Stop being annoyed at other people's happiness. That's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, I don't know, George. I mean, have you said on any of the shows that you're sick of it? Like, sick of what? Have you even said that? Like, what are people sick of? Seeing a cutaway?
Once again, I think you put it perfectly, Craig. I don't care. You know,
Who cares?
they show it really quick. That doesn't bother me. Yeah, but people like to complain about something, right? I mean, they do it during the World Series too, right? When Fox has the World Series, they complain about, when this Fox advertises all their shows by showing whatever star, Rob Lowe at the Dodger game, whatever. I mean, who cares? You want to see a regular crowd shot that makes you happier? Who cares? They're not cutting away from the game. I'm not missing a play because they're showing Taylor Swift. And I may not be a Swiftie, but I like a couple of her songs. Shake It Off's a good tune. I don't mind. So it doesn't bother me whatsoever here. Kendrick Lamar, by the way, I think Craig already said it. He was spot on, by the way. Don't know who Kendrick Lamar is. If he came up here and slapped me in the face right now, I wouldn't know. I don't know any of his songs.
That would be Will Smith.
Sure he's very
that
good.
Would do that. That would be Will Smith, not Kendrick Lamar. That would do that, by the way.
Oh,
Slapping
George ain't like us.
Ooh.
George ain't like us.
Are you aware that Will Smith slapped Chris Rock?
Chris Rock. My wife watches those shows, so I think she might have. I think it was on a Sunday night, and I was working.
It was the Oscar Award.
It's on Twitter.
It was the Academy Awards.
Yeah, I don't watch any of those, but yes, I like Will Smith, or at least I liked Will Smith. I think he's a very good actor, good singer too. I got a couple of his CDs. Dating myself there, CDs.
CDs. What? What's a CD? I thought you invested in a CD. All right, Travis Kelce, 61.5 receiving yards. He didn't do anything in the AFC Championship. He flew over this number in the divisional round. So, Joe, which one is it? It could only be one.
If I'm taking one.
By the way, not going to be close here on this one way or the other.
I agree. That I agree with. So I'm just going to go all in here. Just, again, take the yardage. Yardage is easier to attain. You get a couple of big plays. You've got it. If we go to overtime, we get it. Give me the yardage. I'm going to fade away from the receptions.
Once again, I agree. The Eagles generally pretty good. No Jacoby Dean, though. That hurts there as far as the coverage is concerned there.
Yeah. I
don't love this, though. I just don't. I just have a bad feeling about Kelce. But they have no chance if he's not putting up yardage.
I have a bad feeling about Kelce. Okay. I definitely don't have a bad feeling, but I'm probably on the under. Be right back.
Best dressed guy, let me tell you, next to me in terms of Radio Row. I want to get your thoughts quickly on the game, Philly and KC. How do you see it playing out?
Obviously you got Patrick Mahomes, who just finds a way to win. Then you got on the other side of the table an alien, and Barkley. I mean, he's had an incredible year.
Right.
I think whoever has the balls last is going to win the football game.
Only on SportsGrid.
I have no idea how to categorize what Mavericks GM Nico Harrison pulled off, Joe. All I know is that he shipped off Luka Doncic without telling Luka about it.
If you thought conditioning was a problem for Luka, wait till you get a load of Anthony Davis tripping over air and then missing 40 games because he's like Glass Joe's.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
Fantasy Sports here on SportsGrid. Sorry about that. I was cold, a little frozen there. All right, so Patrick Mahomes. Do you know who that is? Because we're going to hit on his props. I mean, we have really done a great job here, giving you every possible option to bet on the Super Bowl here. So let's start off with Mahomes' passing yards, which is set at 251.5. A lot of experience at the Super Bowl. Generally, Joe, Mahomes has gone under this number for a lot of the regular season, but this is not the regular season. This is the playoffs. In fact, on our fantasy shows, we got to about, I'm sure you did with Matt and George and I too, we got to about week 3, and it was like, do you start Mahomes anymore in fantasy? Then in week 6, it was like, I'm not starting Mahomes in fantasy anymore. If he has over 250 yards, I think the Chiefs are going to win this game.
Here's the problem. I think you can have under and they can still win. And to me, that's why this is a stay away. I think this 251 is a really good number. I don't think it portends one way to the other which way you think this game is going to go, because I could see a world where he's at 240 something and they win this game easily, or if he's at 270 something and they lose this game potentially. So to me, this specific one, when it comes to Mahomes, I'm out on the passing. I do like some Mahomes props here though individually, but this one's not it for me. George, you want to go over or under the 251.5 for him?
I mean, as I've said several times, I have a lot of Mahomes props. I think I have 6 props involving Mahomes directly here. Attempts, completions, throwing interception, getting sacked. I have a small play on the over. I do not love it. All right, for mainly the reasons Joe mentioned here. But because I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball, I think he's going to drop the ball. I think he's going to drop back 40-plus times. All right, I don't think he has a choice here. And that, therefore, he should be able to make this. But they're a team that does not throw large. I mean, they don't throw deep into the secondary. They throw short passes. It's what Mahomes has done all season long, especially since Rice has been out. And I think that continues today. So I think if he gets, I think the number's right. To get this, he's not going to crush it. He'll get 262, something like that. I also think they'll be trailing in the second half, so he's going to have to throw the ball more here. So I do have the over, but it's a small play. Out of all my Mahomes props, this is one of my least favorite.
Yeah, pass for me on this. Now, as far as the passing touchdowns are concerned, you are minus 165 on the over 1.5 passing touchdowns. If Mahomes throws less than 2 touchdowns, your $100 bet gets you 135. George, we'll switch it up and start with you here. So, I mean, your lean is toward Philadelphia in this game. So is this a prop for you where you have under 1.5 passing touchdowns plus 135?
I didn't play it. All right. I think Kansas City scores 3 at most. I think I want Mahomes to run one in. All right. That's where the big money is. Where Joe and I get 4-1 here. So that's what I'm really hoping for there. It wouldn't, as much as I don't think Pacheco and Hunt are going to do very well, it wouldn't shock me if Hunt runs one in as well. We saw that last week versus Buffalo here. I don't think they score enough here where I can, where it's worth the minus 165. All right, I don't like the price. If it was a little better, I might think about it here, but this is not one of my Mahomes props.
Yeah, this is the juice. I mean, at the end of the day, it's almost minus 170 in some spots here for Patrick Mahomes on the over 1.5 passing. So the value is on the under. The variance is too much. Patrick Mahomes, again, I think the best way to invest in him is actually with the legs today. I mentioned that rushing prop for him to the anytime touchdown plus 400. That's a great return. And I think the yardage is going to come up again. I know we're going to talk about that in a second, but I keep talking about, like, we're talking about X's and O's here and talking about what this game plays out to be. And I keep coming back to the same thing over and over and over again. And I just think it's logical where pressure up front, corners locking down. What do you have to do? You got to get out in space and make things happen. Now, Patrick Mahomes is also one of the best, I think, improvisers that we've ever seen in the NFL. Not just in terms of the way he throws the football at times, but getting out there flush from the pocket and making plays. And that's what's dangerous about the yardage. He could get out of the pocket and run like I think he's going to. He could also get out of the pocket, find some open Xavier Worthy, find some open Hollywood Brown, which is a wrinkle in this offense we don't have a lot of experience with, which is another variable to keep really close attention on today. Like, is Hollywood Brown an impact player in this game? Probably not. But at the end of the day, if we all looked up and said that was the guy that actually led the Chiefs in receiving yards, would it really shock any of us?
Let's Luke, let's go over to those rushing yards, by the way, from Mahomes, as Joe alluded to here. I want to touch on this real quick. 29.5 here is the number at minus 110 on both sides, by the way. And Joe, that is, to me, maybe more of the determiner as to how the Chiefs end up doing, because it does feel like when Mahomes has a big run, whether it's down the sidelines, going out of bounds, going in the end zone, that's like the signature moment of every Chiefs game, isn't it? The shock that the Mahomes from 3 years ago, who used to run all the time, is now picking his spots, but it's usually a long run. So not only do I maybe lean toward the over of 29.5 here, his longest rush to me too would be something to take a look at.
Yeah, it is. And what's interesting too is I locked this in at the 29.5, and some books already have it at 31. I do like Mahomes to throw a pick, though, too. That is one thing that he has done sometimes. Sometimes he does get a little fast and loose with the football, try to do too much. He has 5 picks in the Super Bowls he's played, so it's not impossible there. So you're getting even money on that. But to me, I keep coming back to this one, and the fact that it was 29 and moved up to 31 tells me that a lot of people are starting to see it the same way I am, which is that we're looking at Mahomes to take off, run, make plays. If you're in 3rd and long, guess what? Patrick Mahomes rushing for 15 yards is not absurd. And if he gets one of those, just one of those kind of moments, he's already halfway there, Craig. And then if you have an overtime game, because it's a close game, guess what? That's more volume for Mahomes with the football in his hands. So to me, this is one I like a lot. George, when you're looking at Mahomes rushing totals, where I stand, where do you stand?
Yeah, I'm on the over as well. Now, this is where variance comes in, by the way. You've seen some books at 31.5. I got it at 28.5. One of the first props I took here. Right now, it's at 27.5 on the New York book. I'm actually thinking about doubling down on it, taking it again, that it went down a yard. I'm shocked it went down a yard once again. I think he's going to drop back 40 times. The pass rush is going to be there for Philadelphia. He's going to have to take off sometimes. He's going to feel the need. I got to move the chains here. No one's open. I got to move the chains. I think he'll get his longest rush as well. So, yes, I'm all over this. And like I said, I'm thinking about doubling down here and taking the over 27.5. This first time I've looked at it today, and I can't believe it actually went down a yard. Shocking. It was at 29. It's actually gone down 2 yards from what it was last night.
Yeah, I mean, look, sometimes these numbers just get bet down. I don't think that there's really much to it, so really nothing deeper to dive into. How about the passing attempts at 36.5, George? Essentially, this is right around the number that he usually has. It indicates that the Chiefs aren't going to be able to run the ball all that much. It's a high number, but this is pretty much where he's been.
And I think he gets it. Once again, I'm at 35.5. That's the number I got. I think he's going to – I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball. I think they're going to get real sick of getting 2 yards of carry here. And they're going to realize it's all Mahomes all the time here. I think they'll use Mahomes throwing the ball to the flats, to either Pacheco, Hunt, Perrine. They'll use that as the running game, and I'll take that, right? That's my attempts there. So I am all over Mahomes. I think he gets over 40 attempts in this game.
Wow. Yeah. Interesting here, too, to think about, Craig, when you're trying to break down Mahomes. That early journey of Mahomes, right, was trying to get over the hump of beating Tom Brady, and he couldn't, right, in the AFC Championship games, right? We got to that point. And then the one Super Bowl that he hasn't won was against who? Tom Brady. I don't know if there's anybody who outworks Patrick Mahomes besides maybe it was Tom Brady. And I get it. Like, the Eagles are talented. The Eagles are really good. But at the end of the day, it's Patrick Mahomes. And this offense got healthier at the end of the year. The return of Hollywood Brown, the return of Isaiah Pacheco, right? We're getting all these pieces. Xavier Worthy starting to click and get it. We're looking at Travis Kelce starting to look a little bit more, at least in the playoffs, not so much in the last game, but the previous 2 games, looking more a little bit like himself. And I think all that is really important. If you ask me, like, who flipped the switch and who has the momentum here, the fact that it's not the Chiefs is kind of puzzling to me. Yeah, the Eagles did a great job of beating the teams they put in front of them, but the Washington Commanders were a team nobody thought should be in the playoffs, and that was the team they had to get through. Right. And then you're talking about the Rams playing in that horrible weather, and then you're talking about what? You're talking about, them barely getting – I mean, look, they always were going to beat the Packers, but that wasn't exactly an impressive showing. I know it was a first game back for Kurtz, but still, I keep looking at the teams that they've played this year and the teams that the Chiefs have played, including the Bills multiple times, right? I just think one team is more battle-tested than the other, and I think it's the Chiefs, and I think they're going to be prepared when push comes to shove. And a lot of people have had 2 weeks to think about this, and I think they thought too much.
All right, fair enough. We'll be right back with more fantasy sports today next.
My mom, she was a professional ballet dancer. My aunt played professional tennis. My dad played football at Pitt when they won a national championship. My sister ran track at Stanford. So it's just kind of in my blood to love all sports. And so I've always obviously loved golf, but it's been nice to kind of branch out a little bit more and get into different sports and different topics and not just always do golf.
Only on SportsGrid.
St. John's is primed to make a run. They're fabulous defensively. And I've told people on this network time and time again, when Kadari Richmond plays, he's a difference maker. They're right now the favorites to win the Big East regular season title. By the way, I told everyone that was going to happen. -170. And I told everyone that was going to happen.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Let's talk about Philly and Kansas City. They're here again 2 out of the last 3 years. What are your thoughts on this matchup?
I'm a big Andy Reid fan, and it's hard to go against what he's been able to accomplish. Okay. That being said, there's a lot of storylines in this game. You know, you look at Saquon and what he's been able to do this year.
Crazy.
It's wild. But if he's able to do what he's done throughout the playoffs, they'll be hard to beat.
Only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back to Fantasy Sports Today on SportsGrid. We got about 15 minutes to go, then Pro Football Today takes over. They're ready to go. They're back from the Super Bowl in New Orleans, and they're in the studios in New Jersey at Bellworks. So let's get started here and take a look at some crazy props, some big plus money props. Maybe you can hit on one of these. Joe, it's funny that the Eagles had a better number to record 5.5 sacks than the Chiefs do, and I sort of feel like maybe the Eagles have a better chance to do it, even though it's a longer shot bet. Kansas City is plus 190 to do this. Chris Jones, of course, one of the ultimate, sack masters. It's interesting that both Philadelphia and Kansas City, a lot of the pressure that they get is up the middle and not on the outside. That's generally not the way it works in the NFL.
Yeah, it's generally not. And don't forget about Karlaftis, too. Like, that's another guy that can get after the quarterback. It's not just Chris Jones. And Karlaftis to get a sack today, I would love that prop also. I'd be all over that one because Chris Jones creates so much terror all over the place. Fun fact here, people say, oh, that's an impossible number, right? Well, it happened to the Philadelphia Eagles and Jalen Hurts back in September against the Buccaneers. He also was sacked 5 times against the Dallas Cowboys. So Hurts against pressure is not the greatest thing. I don't think this number is great enough for it. But it is something to consider where both these teams do get after the quarterback. So rather than look at this, big numbers, big returns, 5+ sacks or whatever it might be, look for the individuals. Look for Karlaftis. Look for Chris Jones. Look for the overs on the sack totals on these guys. Because Jalen Carter is going to get after it. I think some of these other guys will too. So these quarterbacks will take some sacks. The numbers bear it out. But at the same time, trying to get some of these wacky ones just isn't as good of a play.
Yeah, we'll be quick with George on these because he's not rooting for any of these. So, George, are you no on all 3 of these? Obviously, right? When we get to them,
probably. But I do have some Kansas City props. I just think it's a little tougher on Kansas City to figure out where the points are coming from, where the yardage is coming from here, outside of Mahomes. I think Mahomes is going to do all the damage here. But there's a prop where you could pick 12.5 or less players to catch a pass today, both teams combined. And the Eagles are probably only going to have 4 or 5 guys at most. It's the Chiefs that are the problem. They might have 8, 9 guys catch a pass. I mean, Joe already named all the randos. What you call it, randos before, right? Smith-Schuster, Hopkins, Brown. I mean, they got a lot of guys. Gray, Kelsey. We haven't even got to the receivers, right? the running backs, Perrine, Hunt, Pacheco. That's 8 guys I just named on the top of my head. They are a problem. That's why it's very hard to lock down the Chiefs and their props.
You're better off investing, like, say, 1 unit on all of those randos than probably 3 units on a Kelsey to score a touchdown today, because one of those is going to hit and it's going to have a massive return. And it's just funny. Like, you could just spread it out. It's like, well, they say diversify, right? That's what you got to do to your investments, diversify. You're better off probably diversifying with some of these randos on the Chiefs than you are heavily investing in a guy like Kelsey.
All right. Both defensive touchdown props, basically 7-1. Kansas City's very similar to Philadelphia. It's not something that you expect, but it has happened previously in the Super Bowl. And then we have, once again, Kansas City to win in overtime, gentlemen, at 18-1. Joe, I'll start with you. These are just very similar in nature to the Philadelphia ones.
Well, the win in overtime, I think, is a really good bet for either. And I think both of these you could bet and then just cash one out, or you're going to be, I would bet both of them and just let it play out, to be honest with you, because you've already won and you've already run a huge return, right? You put $10 on both of these, you get to overtime, you're a winner. You're already making a nice return. So it's actually one of the more interesting ways to bet this game. And we did finally have an overtime Super Bowl. These teams are so close. Okay, why not? Now, the defensive touchdown is interesting. And the one thing that I would remind everybody, the ball security of Jalen Hurts historically has been a little iffy. This is a guy that, if you go back and look at the numbers, he has 45 career fumbles. Now, that's a good amount. And I think people forget that because this year he's been much more economical with the football. But it's not impossible that we look for a Jalen Hurts fumble and a pickup and a return going the other way. Not so much an interception. I think that is where people are looking at, well, there's maybe not enough attempts in there where we're looking for Jalen Hurts to maybe throw a pick. But what about the fumbles? What about a situation where there's a bad exchange between him and Barkley? Or what about maybe him just getting flushed out of the pocket, not protecting the football enough with a guy like Chris Jones or with a guy like Karlaftis? That, to me, I think is the far more likely scenario than a pick six, is the pick up six, where you go ahead and just pick up that fumble and run the other way with it, because I think that one is the more likely of those scenarios when it comes to the Chiefs side of this defensive touchdown. George, do you see the Chiefs getting a defensive touchdown here at all?
No, I don't. I'm not betting it either way, go Chiefs or the Eagles. It's just odds are against it. That being said, I do believe that if it does happen, I kind of agree that there'll be a fumble, not an interception return there. And I love your play about the overtime, by the way. Listen, just bet $10, $20 on both of them, and you get cash that way, right? And that's probably is the way to go. The game's probably not going there. And Craig's right. I'm certainly not betting Kansas City to win an overtime. That would go against everything I have in this game. All right, so yeah, that'd be Philadelphia, more intriguing. But I said I haven't bet either one, but I kind of like where you're going with that, Joe. Just bet both and hope it hits.
Yeah. Have you guys looked at any of the exotics, so to speak? And I know we talked about it earlier in the show, but the coin toss, or some of the stuff you obviously can't bet legally. The novelty.
I'm going to blow your mind, because Matt Peralt brought this up to me on the show I did with him earlier in the week on Betting Pros. He said to me, he goes, "Why can't we bet the coin toss every week?" He's like, "I understand all the other weird exotics. There's a lot of time.
He's right.
The books can figure it out. But it's a 50-50 or 52-48, depending on what kind of tinfoil hat you wear. Like, why can't you bet the coin toss easily every single week?"
No, I think it's a fair. I think it's a. No, I think it's a. Yeah, go ahead, George.
By the way, remember, if you're going to bet the national anthem, how long it goes, most books or most places you're betting it stops when the lyrics stop, not the music. But the lyrics stop. That's when it's the end here. So I guess they.
So we're talking about arrangements, really, today, George.
Who is doing the anthem?
I'm not betting.
Who is doing the anthem today?
I don't know. Anybody?
Luke, do you know? Does anyone know? Well, we're sports guys.
I'll know what it is when they say. I know I've heard it.
George, are you excited to see SZA and Kendrick Lamar together? That's the big question, because they've done some songs together.
Who?
SZA.
Who was the first name?
The Rizzler?
I would like SZA. Yeah, she's great. You're gonna have. Can you spell SZA? That is the question.
I don't even know who this is.
I guarantee you, if you gave George 20 attempts to spell SZA, he would not spell it correctly. It's
SZA.
No, SZA. SZA. We'll be right back. Right after this.
Who we pulling for? Who we looking to win this game?
I picked Buffalo over Kansas City in the AFC Championship game, and I was wrong. I'm picking Philly. Philly has the better roster.
Yeah.
But Kansas City just knows how to win, especially one-score games. But I think Saquon, like he's been the difference all year, Kansas City has to prove to me they can stop him.
Absolutely.
They can stop him, stop that O-line, and not have Jalen have to throw it 40 times.
Only on SportsGrid.
It was the greatest show ever. It's funny, and you know what I like? You have balls. I mean, the stuff you do on that show, you are half crazy.
You know, I feel like a good sense of humor, and I like to show it off. And this kind of originally started where people were the hot dog eating challenge was something that I always wanted to do, and every 4th of July, and I was like, I could eat a ton of hot dogs.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid. It's finally here. The big game is just days away, and SportsGrid is live from New Orleans all week long, bringing you the latest news, insights, and analysis from the biggest names in the game. And on game day, we've got you covered all day long with expert picks, live odds, and everything you need to make the most out of the biggest game of the year. Don't miss a second, and it's all happening only on SportsGrid.
The Fantasy Sports Today extravaganza is coming to a close. We have approximately 6 minutes to go until we turn it over to Pro Football Today, and they will take you right up until game time decisions. And, of course, it is Super Bowl Sunday here at SportsGrid. So what would a Fantasy Sports Today Super Bowl show be without predictions? Did we get one from Matt Stryker before he bailed on us there?
I don't think so.
He didn't
I
give
don't
us
think we
one.
did, actually. No.
Is he even going to watch the game, Joe? Do you think he will watch the game?
Matt, if I predict Matt Stryker will be asleep by somewhere around 9:15. And then he'll wake up and see the end, and he'll go, "Oh, okay," and then roll over. That's my Matt Stryker prediction.
Been there, but we're both of us, all three of us, are past the young children stage for the most part. So we can stay up. And watch.
Yeah, he's got his eyes on the markets. Matt Stryker is he's a different egg. That one, he's special.
Fair enough. All right. So Joe Pisapia's official prediction for the Super Bowl: the win, the cover, the MVP.
All right, here we go. It's going to
I've got
upset
the Super
everybody.
Bowl wrong like 10 years in a row here, so you should just do the opposite.
There
of
you
what
go.
I say.
Well, look, I got it right last year, and I got everything right last year when Patrick Mahomes was an underdog, and I feel like they're basically doing the same thing to him, which is not showing him enough respect or Andy Reid enough respect. And guess what? They hate it. They're like, we beat this team 2 years ago, and you still think it's a pick'em game? There it is. Once again, I think the Eagles have a lead here in the fourth quarter. They give Patrick Mahomes too much time. They're up 24-20. Final score, 26-24. Give me the Chiefs to end up once again winning this game at the end. Give me Patrick Mahomes to win the MVP yet again. And I know this is really close to that total, so it's going to irritate people. I know it's going to be 2, which is going to irritate a lot of people. So sorry, you're all going to be irritated. Go bet all these props we've been talking about for the last 3 hours instead. Stay away from some of the game stuff or just bet the money line straight up. Or better yet, if you like the Eagles, don't bet on the Eagles. Just bet on Saquon Barkley to win MVP. You're getting a much better number on that. And if you don't, I think you're missing the boat, because if Saquon Barkley has this transformative game, if he has this capper to an incredible season where it was the year of Saquon, they will put that Rocky statue over to the side and they will build another one of Saquon Barkley. And there will be people naming their children, or it's Philadelphia, maybe even renaming their children Saquon. That will happen, guarantee it. But I don't think it's happening today. I think it's, once again, Patrick Mahomes making history, Craig. So sorry, everybody, but the script is in.
Three-peat. All right. George, we know what you've illustrated for 2 hours, 57 minutes, and 12 seconds in this game. So do it one more time. Boy, I hope you are right.
Boy, I guess now I can disagree with Joe, right? I'm on Philadelphia. I think they're the better team here. Outside of Mahomes, outside of Butker, every position group favors the Eagles here. Listen, Andy Reid's a much better coach than Sirianni, and that does scare me a little bit. You know, that Sirianni is going to do something stupid that's going to cost him the game here. He's going to feel the need to sort of make a name for himself here. But I just think the Eagles are the better team. I think they get it done. A little revenge for a couple of years ago. I have 24-20, so means I'm on the under as well. I don't feel great about the under, by the way. I feel much better about Philadelphia than I do the under here. The ironic thing was, or the coincidence thing was, I cover on Carver and Lisi during the week. Carver, Lisi, and I all picked the same score, 24-20. Probably should pick that exact score. Should bet that exact score here. As for the MVP, it's usually a quarterback award, but I think Joe already said it. They want Barkley to win this award. He's actually the favorite, plus 250. I think Kurtz was plus 350 last I checked here. So I'll go with Barkley. Barkley 24-20 under. Philadelphia wins.
I'll go lowest scoring first half in Super Bowl history. I'm gonna go 3-0 at the half. 3-0. Kansas City leads at the half. I'm gonna say one of the lower scoring Super Bowls we've seen in a long time. 19-14 Eagles win. I personally think we are long overdue for a dud in the Super Bowl. I'm not rooting for it, but the Eagles in virtually every regular season game this season did not score in the first half of their games. And the Chiefs have struggled on offense too. Maybe there's more scoring in the second half than the first half, but I just see a defensive battle in the Super Bowl. I don't know. Maybe just me. But anyway, gentlemen, great job. Thanks so much for being part of the show. Joe, good luck with your flag football game today. George, good luck with all your bets. And thanks again to Matt Stryker for participating in the first couple hours of the show. And Luke did a great job producing, too, here on the Super Bowl Sunday. Who's the TD today? Jake, thanks for TDing today as well. All right, so that'll do it. Enjoy the rest of your Super Bowl Sunday, and we'll see you again next week.
Even the great Nick Saban had to put his team together to do it his way. We know Coach Ryan's coming in to come run the offense, who was his right-hand man, a good friend of his at UW. And, now he's coming in. Everything is going the way we want this thing to be. Coach DeBoer is a great recruiter. He's a great father of players. He's a great leader of men. He's going to do great.
Only on SportsGrid.
But don't tell anybody. I'm sick of coming here every year and talking about the Kansas City Chiefs.
Look, remember a few years ago we were here, people saying, Andy Reid's going to retire. I'm like, no way. When you're riding Seabiscuit, Secretariat, when you're riding a horse that you know can win, who would jump off that?
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
My mom, she was a professional ballet dancer. My aunt played professional tennis. My dad played football at Pitt when they won a national championship. My sister ran track at Stanford. So it's just kind of in my blood to love all sports. And so I've always obviously loved golf, but it's been nice to kind of branch out a little bit more and get into different sports and different topics and not just always do golf.
Only on SportsGrid.